Hello, today is Monday, December 23rd, and welcome to a very special holiday episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I am NSI Advisory Board member Lester Munson.
Wheel it over us.
Get over it, people. I'm joined today in the office by NSI's Deputy Executive Director, Martha Miller, NSI Fellow Jessica Jones, NSI Senior Fellow Morgan Vigna, and via the miracle of Riverside, NSI CTC Senior Fellow Matt Hayden. So everyone, happy holidays. We're recording this the week before most of the holidays are occurring, so it's possible we're not totally up to speed on the latest events. There could be earth-shattering things that happen in the next few days that we won't be commenting on. Martha, I'm going to go to you first since you're the one who wrote these questions. For our audience, would you please name the most significant foreign policy event or trend of 2024 and what you believe its implications will be moving into next year?
So I would say it's Syria's collapse, or Assad's collapse, and it's not just a regional implication, but it also, to me, demonstrates a shift for Russia, which has been using its naval and air base as its linchpin for the Mediterranean and Africa.
Morgan, we're going to you next. What is the most significant trend or event of 24, and what does it mean for next year?
So when you say trends suggest that they are reoccurring, possibly carried on from the previous year. And I would note that it is 436 days since the hostages in Israel were taken captive by Hamas, and many of which, including Americans, are still there. I would say a trend that we've seen this year is American abdication of leadership abroad. Ding, zang, bam. And
Go hitting.
and I think we're going to actually see a major course correction going into next year with the Trump administration. My prediction is that we're going to see some major changes, particularly in the Middle East, and see their hostages released.
Matt Hayden, what's your pick for a big event or trend of 24, and what does it mean for next year?
For 24, we seem to find China everywhere. So everything with insert name here, typing, you have a lot of China being spotted doing China things. And so I would say that the largest trend we saw was really stamping out and being public about China's integration into our critical infrastructure here in the United States.
Jessica Jones, event or trend from this year, and what does it mean for next year?
It's the most intense questioning I've ever come on from Les. Kind of on Martha's answer a little bit, both event and trend. The seemingly now demonstrated weakness of Russia when it comes to, we're seeing, North Korean troops fighting on Russia's behalf in Ukraine. We see the collapse of Syria, and what that might mean for next year if we see the potential end of the the war in Ukraine, what it means for their negotiation power, their leverage, and how that conflict ends.
I'm going to go with my favorite trend of 24, which is the rise of the United States relative to other powers in the world. We saw China kind of peter out economically and politically. We saw the Middle East change before our eyes, despite a completely schizophrenic policy from the Biden administration. We saw our closest allies in the world struggle democratically. All of the other major Western powers have demonstrated political weakness. It is the American democracy that has emerged as the strongest one this year, and I think that's going to pay huge dividends for the president-elect and his team next year. President Trump is going to be going in with a very strong hand for 2025. Morgan, you look like you want to react to
Yeah, 2025 is going to be the year of the American flex. So there it is.
Well done. One word, flex.
That's a question for later.
All right, now we're gonna pivot to predictions for 2025. Matt Hayden, you're up first. What is your prediction for next year?
So we're going to have a lot of interesting fireworks around Doge. I think that it's going to be a dynamic that's going to get everybody on their toes about how they integrate as an outside group, but yet produce this 2 trillion worth of goodness goal. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and to see how that all unfolds.
Jones, prediction.
Not really going with what I'm interested in is there's been some stories about kind of Chinese influence in Mexico, which we know is our kindly neighbor to the south, and soon to be President Donald Trump has also talked about raising tariffs on our neighbor to the south, and whether, how the Chinese growing presence, manufacturing presence in our southern neighbor impacts, our relationships. Are we going to start to worry? Do we need to be worried? I just think that's something we don't talk about when it comes to the U.S.-Mexican relationship, and I'm interested to see where it goes.
Vina, predict.
Let me get my crystal ball out here, Les. So sticking with the Middle East theme, I think we're going to actually see a lot of progress when it comes to normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia and the expansion of the Abraham Accords. Clearly, this is something that was a major win during the first Trump administration. President Biden attempted to move in that direction with very little success. I will note October 7th probably had a little something to do with that. And so as a result, that progress stalled significantly. I will say, though, that I think President Trump going into his second term is going to have a lot of momentum behind him, and will be able to, I think, work some interesting deals in the Middle East, particularly with Saudi Arabia. And in that vein, I expect we'll see some hostages released and maybe some negotiation or some peace settlement, or at least temporary peace deal with the Palestinians.
Martha Miller, your prediction.
Where should I start?
Whoa. Coming in hot.
I think we will see a return of Syrian migrants to Syria, which could be interesting in Turkey in particular, but also in Europe, where this has been putting a strain on the political landscape, and that has also encouraged far-right groups and political parties and help them be successful. So I actually will be very curious to see how that unfolds.
All right, my prediction: regime change in Iran, not necessarily driven by the United States, but driven by the inherent weakness in the clerical regime in Tehran. We will see a new government there, not necessarily something perfect, but something much less hostile to U.S. interests. Vina, your reaction.
Crossfire.
No. I think that is a very bold prediction, and I think it's an optimistic one. I would love to see that. Les, one thing that the group did not touch on was Ukraine, and where the Trump administration is going to come down on that conflict. President Trump famously said that he could end the war in Ukraine in hours, a day, one day, and I would really love to see. I am actually looking forward to seeing how those negotiations are going to progress once he's back in office. It'll be interesting to see how his engagement with Putin is, and how Putin is able to work with Trump. I will say, if Putin does not play ball, so to speak, and continues to prolong the conflict, it'll be. I'm looking forward to seeing how Trump will respond. More importantly, how I guess not more importantly, but more to the point, how Keith Kellogg will advise the president. In a previous paper, he's recommended that if Putin doesn't play ball, we should arm Ukraine to the hilt and just annihilate Russia. So we'll see what happens there. It's definitely something to watch.
All right, this is a very similar question. Martha, we'll let you start with this one. What are you watching in 2025? What issue or country do you think will dominate the headlines?
I'm not even sure where to go with that one. Lester. Ukraine will be very interesting, and particularly if Trump is successful in negotiating a settlement. that will require security guarantees. And if that does indeed take place, who's really going to do that? Will it be Germany? Will it be France? The Trump administration would likely require that to be European security forces. I think that'll be very tricky, and so I'll be curious to see how that unfolds.
All right, I've just decided we're going to change the question. Does Ukraine go into NATO or not as part of the deal?
In the next year?
Next year, there's going to be a deal. That's what we've been talking about. Does Ukraine go into NATO?
I will optimistically say yes.
Morgan, NATO, yes or no?
No, Ukraine's not ready yet. Absolutely not.
Jones,
No.
Matt Hayden.
No.
I'm going with yes, there will be a path to NATO for Ukraine as part of the deal with Putin. Okay, Morgan, what's the issue that will dominate 25 aside from Ukraine?
So I think rather than a region to watch, I'm going to say the issue to watch in national security is defense modernization. We're going to see a lot of new players come in to DoD and our national security agencies, and I think we're going to see a new way of doing business, particularly as you have some major startup players in new roles of influence. I'll be particularly interested to see how Doge, as Matt referred to earlier, plays a role in this. And I'm actually really excited to see a lot of these major defense technology companies and innovators move fast.
Matt, what issue or country is going to dominate the headlines next year?
So AI covers the business beat so much. I think that the regulatory differences between Europe and America is going to be key. I think that's going to be one that's going to have a big focus, because as we lead into 2025, we get announcements about the Google chip for quantum, and other things start to take oxygen. I think that they're going to try and really hammer down on the AI subject area for the next 12 months.
Jones.
Also AI, but a slightly different point. I think the question of energy and how we actually power AI, like emerging technologies. And I think, whether it's the current electricity infrastructure grid, whether it's nuclear, I think looking short term and long term, how we are going to continue powering US tech.
I'm going to go with political turmoil in Canada. Regional disputes, weakened central government, failing Liberal Party, ascendant Conservative Party. I think our friends to the north are going to really struggle next year.
Are you predicting they become a state?
No, well, maybe,
There
it's
was an offer
interesting
on the
idea.
table. There's an offer on the table, as I understand it.
I understand the joke, and I appreciate the joke that the president-elect has kind of put on the table. A little bit of hubris there. We're 0-2 against Canada in armed conflicts, so we should not get too cocky here. While I'm all for making fun of our northern neighbors who have a pretty good sense of humor. Martha, what is your biggest wish for U.S. foreign policy in 2025? Biggest wish?
That we maintain our commitment with our alliances, and that we maintain or maybe strengthen our global engagement and leadership.
Matt Hayden, biggest wish for next year?
So I think it's an opportunity. Whenever disruption comes, whether it's intentional or not, there's opportunity. So I hope globally we take advantage of this opportunity all over the place to really strengthen partnerships where they may have not existed, or candidly, when we start talking about things like NATO, looking at modernization as a way to really open up. When we talk about the defense industrial base and strengthening our own efforts, working with them at the same time, I think there's a real olive branch all over the place to work with that'll be pretty strong.
Jones.
Knew it was coming up next. To that point, at the end of the year, we've talked about Syria. We've talked about potential kind of hard hits coming to Iran and Russia, especially as we look maybe for potentially the conflict winding down in Ukraine. Whether we can take advantage of at least an arguable weakness across some of our adversaries and come from a place of strength.
Vina, biggest wish?
All I want for Christmas. I would like to see the United States use our international organizations and multilateral system to our national security advantages, as opposed to maintaining the status quo and a go along, get along relationship. I think the United States, particularly with Elise Stefanik up at the U.S. mission to the United Nations next year, poses a lot of really amazing opportunities to hit back on some of the blatant anti-Semitism that we've seen in the international community, while at the same time actually pursuing U.S. national security interests through this multilateral body. It's one that I don't think the United States has really been able to leverage, particularly in the past 4 years. And so I think I'd really like to see Congresswoman and future Ambassador Stefanik go back to sort of the trends of the first Trump term.
Very good. All right. My wish is for a return to bipartisanship, bipartisan support for our foreign assistance program. I think Democrats have to let go of some ideas that are very partisan, and Republicans need to be willing to invest in helping our neighbors around the world. It's our obligation as the world's most prosperous nation to help people in need, and we should do it in a bipartisan way. We haven't done that in a very long time. All right. Jones, we're going to let you lead off the next round. What is a book, article, or podcast, aside from Fault Lines, that you want to recommend to people for next year?
So I will say the question did not have an exclusion for fault lines. So my answer was, of course, fault lines. You can't take that away from me. No, that was not how we compared. Come out. Let me think about it. Come back to me.
Vina,
All right. Thought about
always
this.
ready to offer something.
Yeah, thought about this long and hard. And I am making my way very slowly through Walter Isaacson's biography on Elon Musk. Let's just say I rented it from our local library, and let's just say it has been overdue for the past 6 months.
You borrowed it.
Yes,
You borrowed it.
borrowed.
You didn't rent it.
Rent it. You borrow books. You don't rent them
From a library?
Yeah,
I don't think you have to rent
borrow books. All right. Well, so I borrowed this book for the past 6 months now, so I might as well just buy it. But I will say it provides a really unique in-depth history and analysis on how Elon Musk does business. And I think just given Elon Musk's role in the Trump campaign and in the next administration, I'm really interested to see sort of how his way of doing business through whether it's vertical integration, his companies being interconnected, his transformational leadership. I'm just really interested to see how this influences how the U.S. does business.
Matt, what's your recommendation?
So I'll be self promotional and talk about the Watchers for a second. They do a series on innovators and executives in the cyber community and how we support national security, and it's a series that's doing like 10 now, and it's working really well.
Martha Miller, your recommendation.
So Morgan mentioned CEOs, and that reminds me of a book a friend, Tevi Troy, recently published, The Power and the Money, the epic clashes between commanders-in-chief and the titans of industry. I think that will have some interesting insights and lessons for the current state of play.
Excellent. Jones, it's finally your turn again.
I will say I read boring biographies of past presidents that have died centuries ago. So that might not be helpful. But I think I'll take a little of Les's knowing what Congress is going, staying up to date on Punchbowl and knowing how Congress is acting, what's up on for the week, how that interplays, especially with the new administration coming in, which may either augment or restrict what's going on as decision making.
Okay, I'm going to go with two recommendations. One, biography of Henry Kissinger, the first volume by Neil Ferguson. It's a couple years old. It's fantastic. I think part 2 is coming out in the next year or so. So it's 800 pages. You should get started reading now so that you're ready when volume 2 comes out, which I think starts when Nixon becomes president in 1969. I will also recommend a podcast by Walter Russell Mead, What Really Matters. It comes out every week. It's fantastic. It's hosted by the Tablet magazine. Okay, our last round. It's kind of a double whammy. Everyone needs to choose one word to describe the year 2024 and one word to describe your hopes for 2025. Martha, this is your question. What is your answer?
2024, muddling. 2025 recalibration.
Vina.
2024 stagnant. 2025. Come back to me.
Jones.
2024 tiring. I think that was a pretty easy one. 2025 though, yeah, come back to me also.
Oh my gosh. Hayden, what's your word for 24 and 25, please?
24 was surviving, and 25 is really investment, because I think that's what we're doing. We're making more investment moving forward.
Okay.
Okay, I got it.
All right, you're ready.
I got it.
25, let's go.
I'm inspired by Matt Hayden. Opportunity.
Good one.
I was going to say hopeful. Same line. Okay.
Thanks.
It's the other side of the coin, Morgan.
Thanks, Obama. For 24, I'm going to go, since we're supposed to be talking about foreign policy and not politics per se, people, I'm going to go with schizophrenic because of the Biden administration's policies that were all over the place on various issues, particularly the Middle East. And for 25, I think I'm going to go with hopeful also. Opportunity is also a good one. I think things are looking up for next year. So,
For the record, we were talking about foreign policy.
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I think there was a lot of politics laid into that. Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks so much to Devlin Burney, Claude Jennings, the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Monday, January 10th, for the beginning of 2025's new season of Fault Lines. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard or saw, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.